After a 16-mile trek off a mountain in December of last year, a young female horse lay down, unable to go any further. Men leading a train of horses out of a base camp for hunting and fishing excursions came across the mare, who looked deathly ill. They left the horse, which they named Valentine, behind to get the rest of the animals down, then went back for her the next day, only to find she had vanished into the vast Wyoming wilderness. 6 weeks later, a worker spotted the 6-year-old mare, and her owners helped guide the horse out through a storm and deep snow. Not only is this grizzly bear country, but a domesticated animal like Valentine also has to find food and survive the harsh winter conditions. She didn't even need veterinary care. But when the story spread last week in the horse-loving resort region of Jackson Hole, it unleashed a fervent debate among residents over whether the outfitting company did the right thing by rescuing the horse, or if they should have put her down to spare her suffering. It culminated in a state criminal investigation that aimed to determine if the outfitter's actions were cruel or helped lead to what some call the miraculous survival of an iconic animal in the American West. B.J. Hill, who owns Swift Creek Outfitters and the Horace, said he had received angry phone calls from across the country. "People are so quick to judge," Hill said in a telephone interview from his ranch. "Who knows what's going to happen? It's not over with yet. We're just trying to survive the moment that our horse is home." Hill, who owns 125 horses, said Valentine's doing well and is happy. It's unclear why she got sick, but she survived on grass until the snow came. Then she would paw at the powder to get food underneath. Jackson Hole resident Joan Anselmo, who has been around horses much of her life, is among those raising questions about why Valentine was left behind and whether enough was done to find her. "I'm a horse person, and I just despair at the thought of that animal being left out in the deep backcountry with all the risks that occur for people and for animals, and in one of the toughest winters that we've had," Anselmo said. So clearly this 6-year-old mare was able to survive, and for most of us, we consider it a miracle. It's considered humane to put down a horse that's severely injured or disabled by old age. Based on initial information that Valentine was near death, Anselmo and others said it might have been better to put her down and let her suffer alone. Hill said the Wranglers did not have firearms, but even if they did, he didn't see the sense of shooting a young horse and giving it no chance to survive. "She was down, but she's too nice of a mare to go shoot for God's sake," he said. "She did what we figured," Anselmo said. "It's not the first choice, but leaving it alone was not acceptable." Hill, who was not on the trip, said most people don't know the whole story. He said his son went up a day later and found her gone. He said perhaps the horse left the trail to get water. Maybe she did, but maybe a grizzly bear spooked her. Hill noted that attempts to find her over the next few weeks proved fruitless. Inevitably, the harsh winter arrived and snow piled up by the foot in mid-December. A worker grooming snow trails in the Bridger-Teton National Forest spotted Valentine and called the U.S. Forest Service. Hill said he, his son, and a Forest Service employee worked for about 9 hours to get the mare back home, leading it out of the wild by a snowmobile. "She was quite a way from where she went down," Hill said. "She went way down the country." The Wyoming Board of Livestock is leading the investigation into what happened, including the reason the Wranglers left her. Senior criminal investigator Ken Richardson said, "It'll take about 2 weeks to complete the review, which will be given to prosecutors for a decision on charges." Richardson said his agency had not uncovered previous criminal wrongdoing by Swift Creek Outfitters. The company's annual permit review has consistently attained the highest rankings, which include the treatment of horses, Bridger-Teton Forest District Ranger Todd Stiles said. In 2013, Macy and her foal, Loca, were found abandoned in an icy field. They were freezing, starving, and exhausted. You can see Macy lying down, resting her head on the snow and shivering uncontrollably. This is an animal on the brink of giving up. It's heartbreaking to watch, but rest assured, a happy ending is ahead. Thankfully, the World Horse Welfare Team arrived just in time. After emergency veterinary care, Macy and her foal, Loca, were brought to the UK's Hall Farm Rescue and Rehoming Center to continue their life-saving treatment and rehabilitation. This story reminds me of the horses in Tennessee, so severely neglected that both the Humane Society and the local sheriff's department joined forces to help. The vet said Macy probably wouldn't make it out alive, but she was saved just in the nick of time. Miraculously, the courageous mother stood on her feet and welcomed the care she received. The before Macy has thin skin, open sores, and not enough energy to feed baby Loca. But the after Macy, as you'll see, is truly stunning. The team works to transform horses in psychological and physical ruin into the majestic, strong animals they truly are. It is imperative that horses are equipped with blankets and enough food and clean water to help them get through the cold winter. Thank God for the world of horse welfare who saved these helpless horses. Just look at them now. Last February, a 5-year-old mare named Polly was discovered in a shocking state of malnutrition, along with 2 other horses who had been abandoned in a field near Buckinghamshire, England. Animal workers called it the worst case of horse neglect they had ever seen. This was an absolutely horrific situation, said Rachel Smith of the RSPCA. It's awful to think that someone no longer wanted these animals and just neglected them and dumped them with no thought for their welfare. 2 of the horses were so starved that they had to be euthanized, and it seemed very likely that Polly would have to be put down too. Once she was rescued by volunteers from the World Horse Trust, a sanctuary for rescued and retired equines, all of the fat on Polly's body was gone. She weighed just 700 pounds, less than half what a horse her size should. Despite the odds, however, Polly did pull through. Sadly, I see a large number of skinny horses, but I'd say Polly was the second skinniest horse I've ever seen. It's a miracle she survived, said RSPCA Inspector Sarah Keith. Once in the hands of the Trust Special Care Unit, the horse's condition was slow to improve. Concerned that a sudden increase in her calorie intake might prove fatal, staff limited her food until they were sure her body could handle it. Meanwhile, she was also kept in isolation in the sanctuary, deemed far too weak and traumatized to interact with the rest of the herd. Every time it seemed like Polly was making progress, there was another setback. The Horse Trust wrote on its website her temperature, pulse, and respiration rates were abnormal, and her weight refused to stabilize every time she gained a kilogram. The weight was lost within days. Rain, scald, and dermatitis were minor issues for Polly to contend with, but the sanctuary staff never gave up. They say Polly proved to be a fighter, too. By the summer, with her health issues under control, Polly's body steadily returned to a healthy weight, and her personality started to emerge as well. Polly has really started to show her character recently and has captured the hearts of all the staff at the Horse Trust, wrote her rescuers. By August, 6 months after being rescued, Polly had put on 330 pounds. With her rehabilitation complete, she was finally set loose on the sanctuary's fields to run and play with the rest of the herd. It seems such a long time since Polly came to us in February. Hers was a case of cruelty of the worst kind. Her condition was so terrible that we could never be totally sure if she would pull through until recently, writes the Trust. It won't be the end of treatment for her, but it's the beginning of a new life. All animals deserve a chance to live a normal life.